this is Nick from The Groundwire, and today I want to talk about using boost pedals with a Fuzz Face or Fuzz Face style pedal. So first question is, why would you need to do that, obviously? And it's very common to use some sort of boost or overdrive after a Fuzz Face. The main reason for that is that Fuzz Face style pedals tend to not sound great into really clean amps. You know, the classic way to use it is like sort of the Jimi Hendrix style into a cranked Marshall that's already overdriving on its own, and that allows the pedal to interact with the amp a lot more and become almost an extension of the amp. Into a clean amp, they tend to sound thinner, brighter, and can be kind of harsh. Maybe useful for that sort of 60s, you know, pop song or country song with a fuzzy lead line thing, but tend to not be inspiring, especially for rock kind of stuff. So in order to simulate going into a heavily overdriven amp, you might use something like a boost or an overdrive pedal in front of your amp to do that. It also can help smooth out the harsh edges of a Fuzz Face, as well as adding a little bit of sustain. Fuzz Faces, although they have a lot of gain, they don't tend to be smooth and sustaining. They're very dynamic pedals. And so adding something to give it some more sustain can be helpful. And then also you might want something to kind of carve out a little bit of the low end, because Fuzz Faces can be kind of muddy. So we're going to look at 4 different types of pedals you could use to boost a Fuzz Face. All are great options: overdrive pedals, compressors, preamp style pedals, and clean boosts. So what I'm looking for when I want to boost a Fuzz Face, and I don't always, I like them on their own if the amp is at least at the edge of breakup. But what I'm looking for is something that smooths out the harshness at the top, the sizzle, gives me a little more sustain, and doesn't impact the ability of the fuzz to clean up, which is something that I really want. So let's run through sort of all these, hear how they sound with the Fuzz Face, and then talk about, you know, maybe some of the benefits or drawbacks to each one. So my Fuzz Face today is a Jam Pedals Fuzz Phrase. It's a germanium Fuzz Face style pedal. I'm playing into a 1965 Deluxe Reverb. It's at 5. It's just on the edge of breakup, which is how I like to set it up, and it sounds like this. Here's the Fuzz Phrase. So let's hear it with an overdrive. This is the Vick Audio Mount Pleasant. It's a blues breaker style overdrive. I like this type of pedal better than something like a Tube Screamer because it doesn't filter the sound and introduce as much mid-range and lop off as much bass, which really changes the character of a Fuzz Face. This kind of keeps the character mostly intact. So you hear this adds a fair amount of extra sustain, adds a little bit more mid-range, but the pedal's not adding that much overdrive. So again, here's my clean sound. It's adding a bit of hair, very natural sounding. This is a great overdrive pedal, by the way. Vick Audio, maybe kind of under the radar, but it's a really good one. Anyways, the one kind of downside to it is that your Fuzz Face won't clean up quite as well. So again, with your volume back, you should be able to get a really nice sparkly clean sound. Most overdrive pedals don't clean up nearly as well as a fuzz. So it still sounds cool, but there's always going to be an inherent grit there. You may or may not want that. You'll also notice that it is adding some mids still. Most overdrive pedals do. So it's a little less spanky and sparkly when cleaned up. Let's hear the Dyna Comp. Now, this is an old, I think late 70s Dyna Comp. You'll notice I have it set with the volume almost all the way up and the sensitivity almost all the way down. You don't want to set this with a lot of compression. If you set it up like a Nashville chicken pick and squash, it will sound terrible with the Fuzz Face. What is great about these is that they really fatten your tone. So here's how I have it set. It adds a nice thickening and a little bit of some nice harmonics and stuff on top, but just a tiny bit of squish. But when it's hit with some level, you'll hear that it really gives the Fuzz Face more sustain. So I really love using a Dyna Comp as a booster for a Fuzz Face. It fattens the sound and gives it a lot more sustain, which sounds great for lead stuff. It affects the cleanup only a little bit, but what you will notice is more noise because compressors inherently introduce quite a bit of noise. So again, here's a nice cleaned up. Probably hear the amount of hiss that's happening there in the background, but you still get a nice still pretty clean, definitely some noise, but I do love the kind of fatness and sparkle that adds. Let's hear this is the Chase Tone Secret Preamp. This is like an Echoplex EP3 style pedal. There's lots of other ones that are popular. The Exotic EP Boost is probably the most popular. But they're not really going to be a boost like really overdriving your signal. In fact, I have this set basically at unity. What it does is it kind of adds subtle thickening, warms up the sound, takes a little bit of the harshness out of the top end and maybe beefs up the low mids a bit. So just really a slight boost, but I love the color that this adds to a Fuzz Face. Let's hear that. So this one feels really good under the fingers to play, I will say that. Smooths out the harsh edges on the attack, and you can also hear it's really not noisy at all. Hardly adds any hiss. Oh, and let's hear our cleanup. So since this is really not boosting the level too much, you don't lose much of the cleanup. It stays real touch sensitive. So I think these are a great option for boosting a Fuzz Face, but they won't really make it sound like your amp is overdriving. So if you have a super clean amp, it's probably not going to do the trick. I like to set my amps up on the edge of breakup, That way they're the most flexible with whatever kind of pedals I want to put into them. Last thing here is the traditional kind of clean boost pedal. This is the Germ from Prescription Electronics. Again, I have no idea what the circuit is because it's all gooped inside. The name would lead you to believe it's some sort of germanium transistor-based boost. It could be a traditional JFET type clean boost. I have no idea. What I know is that it sounds real natural. It thickens the signal similarly to the EP. And it has very little noise, and it sounds great. So here you can see. Adds a little sparkle and harmonics up top, thickens the low mids, not too much bass, full frequency, gives you that kind of nice rubber bandy feel under the fingers. And it actually has a second side if you want to switch it for more boost. I really dig this pedal. They're still pretty reasonable to find used. Anyway, let's hear it with the Fuzz Face. So again, this is adding a nice amount of sustain. Also feels great under the fingers, similar to the Secret Preamp. Very little noise. In fact, almost none. And smooths out the sort of harsh edges of the Fuzz Face. So this actually might be my favorite thing to use to boost a Fuzz Face. I wish I knew what other kind of pedals were like it, but I have no idea what kind of circuit it is. Let's hear how it cleans up. Really like the cleanup on this. Adds some subtle kind of high-end sparkle, but a little bit of compression so it's not too harsh on the attack. Okay, so that's 4 different types of boosters. I don't think you can go wrong with either, but again, the main points would be if you use an overdrive pedal, pick one that is not super mid-humped and don't set it too gainy. If you use a compressor, specifically a Dyna Comp, they're a great option. They add some fatness. Turn the output basically all the way up and the compression almost all the way down. Just turn it up enough to where you can just hear a hint of it, and that'll add a lot of sustain. It will add some noise though. An EP preamp is a great all-around choice and a classic leave it on all the time thing that kind of makes everything sound better. So that's a great option. Although it doesn't really boost your signal much. So if your amp is super clean, that might not be the way to go. And then a clean boost, the Germ, awesome pedal, adds a little sparkle, adds a little fatness, adds a little bit of hair to it, and adds some great sustain and allows the Fuzz Face to continue to clean up. So I'm gonna play a little bit more on this one on the way out, and that's it. Thanks a lot.